Nancy Pelosi gets a ton of flack for her supposed insider trading. It's kind of been all over the news all the time. Lots of websites track her. She's got multiple X accounts that track her trades and all of that. And of course, President Donald Trump has frequently commented on Nancy Pelosi's stock trading prowess. But I wanted to dig into that a little bit. I wanted to see, what is she actually doing? Is it actually tied to legislation that she's impacting? And so that's what we're doing today. We're only going to be looking at her financial disclosures for 2025. There's just too much overall data over all the decades to go through at once. Maybe one day I'll do that. But for today, we're just going to be looking at 2025. And that's from her 4 or 5 filings that she did that included all her stock trades. Those filings are for her and her husband. They're not just Nancy. And in those disclosures, it actually indicates that all of these trades were Paul Pelosi, Nancy's husband's trades. But it's not even her doing it. Obviously, she can tell her husband, hey, we're going to do legislation on something specific and it's going to cause the price of something to go up, maybe. I don't know about that. I don't know what their dinner conversations are about, but I'm not sure that's what's happening here based on what I've looked at. During 2025, Paul Pelosi traded 18 times total. There were a total of 9 companies involved in those trades and 4 transaction types between charitable giving, buying stock, selling stock, and options purchases. The total value of those trades are somewhere between 17 and 80 million. The reason that that range is so massive is because of how large the buckets are on the form that they fill out to do these disclosures. For example, I think one of them was like a $5 to $25 million a bucket. So if the transaction was between 5 and 25 million, it's just somewhere in that range. It could be towards the lower or upper end. Really probably they need to tighten that up a little bit because it's not that meaningful to tell someone that your trade was between 5 and 25 million. But that is the reason that the range of disclosed trade value is so high. All right, here's the 4 main things that the financial disclosures for Paul and Nancy Pelosi tell us. Apple leads by a wide margin. Virtually all of the value of these stock trades was tied up in Apple. I don't find that to be particularly suspicious. Apple's a $5 trillion company. Of course, there's always going to be legislation going on that is going to impact Apple, but trying to move a stock whose market cap is 5 trillion would be very difficult. Institutional traders would have difficulty with that. The government probably would have difficulty with that. Yeah, there's not much you can do to stop a $5 trillion company. Number 2, there is a clear bullish stint to all of these trades, which is basically the position that all of the things that are being purchased are going to go up in value. That's reflected in the stock purchases as well as the option purchases and option exercises. Paul definitely has taken the position that tech is going to go up a lot, and that's where a lot of his trading activity is during the year. Number 3, a lot of the activity occurred at year end. And of course, that coincides with people preparing for tax season. They want to make sure that they've moved all the deductions that they can into the tax year that they're about to have to file for. And a lot of times people will rebalance their portfolios for the upcoming year. Then, of course, number 4, the charitable giving. There's a good chunk of charitable giving that occurred at the end of the year, which I'm sure is for tax purposes. All right, what kind of activity was this? So pretty much all of the trading was options purchases or stock sales, mostly Apple stock sales, and then Paul purchased a bunch of options related to tech companies, smaller tech companies. And then there was one exercise of Broadcom call options that were purchased in 2024. As you can see in this slide, Apple dominated the estimated value of this trade activity, followed by Alphabet, Nvidia, Amazon, Broadcom, Disney, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of looked at these companies to see, like, all right, which of these could maybe have been moved by legislation to go really high, or Paul's taken a bullish position. So any of the legislation that we would be looking at to see if his wife is giving him information would be things that are causing the stock to go up, not down, because he's not tried to short anything as far as I can tell. So from this list, I pretty much eliminated all the big companies, all the name brands that I'm kind of familiar with. I don't believe anything much changed with those during 2024 and 2025. So that really left me with Broadcom. I don't know for sure what went on with that one during the year. And that one's also a little bit different because he exercised his call options. Then Vistra, which I'm not familiar with at all, and Tempest AI, which again, I'm not familiar with at all. So those are the three that we'll be looking into further to see if anything was going on with those companies. All right, so Tempest AI, Vistra, and Broadcom. Tempest AI, I basically took the estimated premium cost, the exercise cost, and the total estimated value as of July 2026 to see what the unrealized gain on that would be, and it would be about 32,000. So that one really didn't move that much. I mean, sure, 32,000 is a lot, but not for the Pelosi's, whose portfolio is worth almost 300 million. That one's nothing to me, really. Vistra, that one is showing a little bit of an unrealized loss as of today. And then Broadcom, which was the exercise of call options that Paul purchased in 2024, that one actually has shown a substantial increase. So we'll look at that one a little bit further to see if anything was going on with that stock. All right, so Broadcom, let's compare that to the overall stock market as of June 2026. I'll run this through backtest portfolio. So all the stock splits and all of that should be factored in here, and we should be comparing annualized returns to the overall stock market on an apples to apples basis. So the 1-year returns are 65% for Broadcom compared to 20% for the overall stock market. 5-year annualized return is 41% compared to 15%. And then 10 years, you can only go back to 2017. So I think that's the start date for either the VTI, which is what I'm using as the overall stock market fund, or Broadcom. So substantial returns over the market during that time period, and particularly over the last year. I looked into what Broadcom does just to see, what moves the needle with this stock in particular, and can we tie that to any kind of insider information that Nancy would have had access to. Broadcom is a major American technology company that designs, develops, and supplies a wide range of semiconductors and infrastructure software for complex mission-critical systems used by global enterprises, data centers, telecom providers, and device makers. It does stuff with semiconductors and infrastructure software. So basically, it supplies tech companies, and it seems to be heavily related to semiconductor solutions. During 2025, the reasons that the stock price went up so much for Broadcom, and this is per yahoofinance.com, shares of Broadcom surged in 2025, gaining 49% for the year. Like many of its peers in the semiconductor and technology spaces, the company has become a key player in the growing adoption of artificial intelligence. It is widely regarded as an industry leader in customs application, specific integrated circuits, which are crucial to the success of high-speed computing, hyperscale data centers operations, and the proliferation of AI. So it's really tied to the overall market related to AI, and we all know there's a massive boom during 2024 and 2025, specifically related to AI. Now, some of that is legislative, but that's primarily related to the Trump administration forcing more business back into the United States through tariffs, like putting up tariffs on semiconductors coming from other countries. So really the stock price is going up as part of an overall trend towards AI. All the legislation that I can find related to Broadcom are just broader technology related items, either regulations around AI or trying to push the semiconductors back into the United States. And none of that, I would say, is private information. It definitely was available during 2024 when Paul Pelosi purchased the call options to begin with. So it wasn't something that really pops out as abnormal. I saw several articles about, oh, you can trade like Nancy Pelosi. Look at what she did with Broadcom. I'm like, no, I don't think she knows what Broadcom is. And I definitely don't think she was telling her husband to purchase Broadcom call options in 2024, then exercising them in 2025. It just seems like it's a little bit of a stretch. There was definitely enough information for Paul Pelosi during both years to make those trades intelligently, and a lot of other people did as well. Of course, it is sensational to post an X post or Twitter post or whatever we're calling it now, that look at the return that she made with this investment, how many millions, and how she got a 65% annualized return, which actually it's a little bit higher because he used options to purchase it to begin with. This total position, though, is about 2% of the Pelosi's overall portfolio. So yes, it does look good on paper. It is a good trade. You probably should sell it. I think we're past that point, the big boom in tech. Maybe not though. Maybe he knows what he's doing. But definitely nothing far outside the range of normal with this trade, I would say. And I scoured the internet. Maybe someone can find something that looks a little suspicious, but I just don't think Nancy was telling her husband over the last couple of years, hey, you need to buy some Broadcom call options and then exercise them. Here's kind of a timeline of what their trade activity consisted of throughout the year. There's 5 call option purchases during January 14th, 2025. And those are just like those big tech companies. There's nothing, or I guess they're not all tech companies, but mostly tech companies. None of them looked unusual to me. They're just like your run-of-the-mill NASDAQ companies. June 20th, you had the Broadcom exercise, which we talked about. October 22nd, gift, charitable giving there. December 24th, and December 30th, he did some trading to kind of rebalance and take some profits. Most of that trading was related to Apple stock. So this portfolio really does not reflect the activity of people who are actively trading the markets. It seems like he just does a couple of trades per year, rebalances the stock portfolio at the end of the year, perhaps pulls some out for liquidity. This slide shows the expiration dates and purchase dates of some of these call options that Paul likes to purchase. It does seem like he has a strategy to his call option purchases. As you can see, most of these companies are just not that unusual. Alphabet, Google, Amazon, Nvidia. He tends to purchase leaps options, which are just long-term options. But he buys them about a year out. So it seems like he's pretty much deciding, hey, I like these companies for the long term. I'm going to buy options because that gives me the exposure to them, and it's a little bit cheaper than buying all of the shares. And I believe a lot of these positions are for stocks that he also just outright owns. So it's buying some options on top of that. He gets some additional exposure and the option to buy them over time if he wants to. And here's the charitable giving. So they donated some of the Apple shares to a donor advised fund, some of the Alphabet, some of the Apple. We don't know the exact amounts, but if we look at the lower end of the range, it would be over 6 million total that they donated to some donor advised funds. So pretty generous gift at the end of the year. Then here's the list of all 18 trades that they made during the year. Nothing too crazy. And you can see those value ranges that I was talking about and how wide they are. I guess in theory, you could use these share values and just look up the price of everything at the time that they purchased it. I didn't do that though. I don't care that much. All right. So what does this trading activity really tell us throughout the year? I don't think it tells us a lot. It tells us that the Pelosi's don't do a lot of stock trading, or at least they didn't for 2025. They are bullish overall on tech. I don't think Nancy has ever mentioned tech, or she's never mentioned stock trading tech. Yeah, I've never seen her say anything about that. They really like Apple. They like to sell it, buy it. It seems to be kind of a Warren Buffett approach. It seems like Warren Buffett does something similar. He'll buy a ton of something and then sell it as he needs liquidity if he doesn't think it's going to grow a ton. And then they have their tax and estate planning at the end of the year, which is pretty much just taking the profits they're going to take, pulling the liquidity they need to take, and making the contributions to various charities in order to get the tax benefits for the year that they're going into. So based on this review, I'm not seeing anything too crazy in the Pelosi's stock trading for 2025. I can definitely do a bigger, more thorough review of everything that she's done in Congress, but it isn't a lot. It's not nearly as many transactions as people think or talk about. I don't think she's telling her husband to do any trades. These seem to be something that he already knows about based on public reporting and other information. And frankly, none of the trades that occurred in 2025 moved their portfolio much at all. Like that Broadcom exercise of those call options was substantial, but $3 million is not material for the Pelosi. So that really did not move the needle much for them, but it's a solid trade. I think that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with this analysis and who you'd like me to review next, whose financial disclosures you'd like me to review next, and see if they are trading on insider information in Congress.